Admiral Kethvar stood on the command bridge of his flagship, watching the greatest military display in galactic history unfold before him. The annual fleet review was the Zephyrian Empire's most important event. Today, over 10,000 warships filled the space around the imperial capital world of Dominion. Prime. Each vessel represented the power that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. The Admiral's four eyes glowed with pride as he watched the massive formation. Battleships longer than small moons moved in perfect lines. Cruisers that could destroy entire planets followed behind them. Fighter squadrons buzzed between the larger ships like angry insects. This was the fleet that had conquered 1,000 worlds and enslaved 50 different alien species. Status report, Kethvar ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. All ships in position. Admiral, replied his aide, a young Zephyrian officer whose scales still shone bright blue with inexperience. Sensor nets are active across 12 star systems. Nothing larger than a grain of sand could approach without detection. The Admiral nodded. The Empire's sensor technology was beyond anything else in the galaxy. They could track a single ship from 3 systems away. Their quantum scanners could see through any known stealth system. No enemy had ever surprised them. Begin the final approach sequence, Kethvar commanded. The massive fleet began to move into its ceremonial formation. Ships that had been spread across light years of space slowly came together above the capital world. It was a sight that made every citizen of the Empire remember why they were the masters of the galaxy. Then something impossible happened. Admiral, the sensor officer's voice cracked with panic. We have a contact. Kethvar turned quickly. Impossible. Our sensors show nothing. Sir, there's a ship in grid 77 Alpha. It's right in the middle of our formation. The Admiral's blood went cold. He looked at the main display screen. Where empty space had been just moments before, a massive warship now floated quietly among his fleet. The vessel was enormous, nearly 2 kilometers long, with a design unlike anything in their databases. How did it get there? Kethvar demanded. Sir, I don't know. One moment the space was empty. The next moment it was there. No jump signature, no energy readings, no dimensional disturbance. According to our sensors, it's been there the whole time. The Admiral stared at the impossible ship. Its hull was a strange dark gray color with unusual markings along its sides. The design was smooth and flowing, very different from the angular warships of the Empire. Strange symbols were painted near what looked like the front of the vessel. Can you read those markings? He asked. The translation computer worked for several seconds before displaying the results. UES Prometheus, it read. Below that were symbols that made no sense to any known language database. UES, Kethvar whispered. What Empire uses those letters? Sir, running a full database search now, the aide replied, his scales turning pale with stress. No known empire or species uses that designation. The Admiral walked closer to the main screen. The ship just sat there, not moving, not powering weapons, not even sending out normal scanner beams. It was as if it was simply observing them. All ships, battle stations, Kethvar ordered. Unknown vessel, you are in violation of Imperial space. Identify yourself immediately. The communication officer shook his head. No response, Admiral. Send the message on all frequencies. Use every language in our database. They waited. The mysterious ship remained silent and still. Around it, thousands of Imperial warships powered up their weapons and raised their shields. The space around Dominion Prime filled with the energy signatures of the most powerful military force in galactic history. Still, the strange ship did nothing. Admiral, the science officer called out, I'm getting some very unusual readings from that vessel. What kind of readings? Sir, its hull seems to be made of materials not in our database. The energy signature is strange. It's almost like the ship exists in multiple dimensions at the same time. Kethvar felt a chill run down his spine. In 3,000 years of conquest, the Empire had never encountered technology they couldn't understand or defeat. They were the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. How could some unknown ship appear from nothing? Keep all weapons targeted on it, he ordered. If it makes any aggressive move, destroy it immediately. Admiral, the communication officer suddenly announced, we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel. On screen, the main display changed to show the bridge of the mysterious ship. What they saw made every officer on Kethvar's bridge gasp in shock. The beings operating the ship looked almost exactly like Zephyrians, but without scales. Their skin was smooth and came in different colors. They had only 2 eyes each and strange hair growing from their heads. A female of the species stepped forward. She wore a uniform that looked professional but unfamiliar. Her expression was calm and confident, showing no fear despite being surrounded by thousands of warships. "Greetings," she said in perfect galactic standard. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Systems Navy, commanding the vessel Prometheus. We request permission to address your Imperial Council on a matter of great importance." The Admiral's mind reeled. Perfect galactic standard was impossible for any species to learn so quickly. It took decades of study even for their own people. And what was this United Earth Systems? Their records showed Earth as a primitive world that had barely developed spaceflight. "You are in violation of Imperial space," HFY responded, trying to maintain his authority. "Surrender your vessel immediately for inspection and processing." Captain Chen smiled slightly. "We respectfully decline, Admiral. We come in peace, but we will not surrender. We simply wish to talk." "You are surrounded by 10,000 warships," the Admiral said, his voice growing angry. "You have no choice but to surrender." "Admiral," the captain replied calmly, "we understand your position. However, we must insist on speaking with your leadership. Time is important." Kethavar looked around his bridge. Every officer stared at the screen in amazement. How could these unknown beings be so calm? Did they not understand the power facing them? "One ship against 10,000, he said slowly. "You cannot win." Captain Chen's smile remained gentle but somehow unsettling. "Admiral, winning and losing are old concepts. We prefer cooperation to conflict. Will you allow us to speak with your Emperor?" The Admiral felt something he had never experienced before in battle: uncertainty. This captain seemed completely unafraid. Her ship had appeared from nowhere, bypassing the most advanced sensor systems in the galaxy, and her crew acted as if being surrounded by the Imperial fleet was no more threatening than a pleasant conversation. "Stand by," Kethavar said finally, cutting the transmission. He turned to his aide. "Contact the Emperor immediately. Tell him we have a situation that requires his personal attention." As the aide hurried to make the call, Admiral Kethavar stared at the mysterious human ship floating peacefully among his fleet. For the first time in his career, he wondered if the Empire had finally met something it couldn't simply conquer. The Prometheus waited, silent and patient, as if time itself meant nothing to those aboard. Emperor Valdris arrived within hours, his personal dreadnought Eternal Dominion taking position at the center of the Imperial formation. The massive ship was 5 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. It was the symbol of Imperial might, and no enemy had ever faced it and survived. Admiral Kethavar stood at attention as the Emperor's hologram appeared on his bridge. Valdris was ancient even by Zephyrian standards, his scales having turned the deep purple that marked extreme age and wisdom. His 6 arms moved constantly, a sign of his legendary impatience. "Explain the situation, Admiral," the Emperor demanded, his voice carrying the authority of 3 millennia of absolute rule. "Your Majesty," an unknown vessel appeared in our formation without warning. Our sensors detected nothing until it was simply there. The crew claims to be from something called the United Earth Systems. "Earth?" Valdris paused, his scales shifting to a darker color. "That primitive world in the outer rim? Our last survey showed them barely capable of reaching their own moon." "Yes, Your Majesty, but they speak perfect galactic standard and show no fear of our fleet." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Show me this vessel." The main screen switched to an external view of the Prometheus. Emperor Valdris studied the strange ship for a long moment, his expression growing more thoughtful. "The design is unlike anything in our databases," he mused. "But no primitive species could build something so large. Are you certain of their origin?" "They identified themselves clearly, Your Majesty. The ship's markings confirm it. Open a channel to their captain." Within moments, Captain Chen appeared on the screen again. She looked directly at the Emperor and gave a slight bow of respect. "Your Imperial Majesty," she said, "thank you for agreeing to speak with us. I am Captain Sarah Chen, representing the United Earth Systems in this first contact." Valdris leaned forward in his throne. "Captain Chen, your vessel appeared in our space without permission and without detection. How do you explain this?" "Our technology allows us to travel in ways that may seem unusual to your people," Chen replied calmly. "We mean no offense by our arrival. We simply need to discuss an important matter with the leadership of your empire." What matter could be so important that you risk war with the galaxy's greatest power? Captain Chen's expression grew serious. Your Majesty, we have been observing galactic civilization for some time. We are concerned about the direction the Empire has taken in recent centuries. The Emperor's scales turned bright red with anger. You dare question the Empire? We have brought order to 1,000 worlds and created the greatest civilization in galactic history. We do not question your achievements, Chen said carefully. However, we are troubled by your treatment of other species and your expansion methods. Many worlds have suffered under Imperial rule. Admiral Kethvar watched in amazement as this human spoke to the Emperor as an equal. No one had dared challenge Valdris in over 1,000 years. Yet Captain Chen showed no fear, even with 10,000 warships surrounding her vessel. Our methods have created peace and stability, Valdris replied coldly. The galaxy was chaos before the Empire brought order. We have ended countless wars and unified thousands of species under one rule. Under your rule, Chen corrected gently. But what about their freedom to choose their own path? Freedom? The Emperor's laugh was harsh. Freedom leads to chaos, Captain. The Empire provides stability, security, and prosperity. What more could any species want? The right to make their own decisions. The chance to grow and develop according to their own nature. The opportunity to contribute to galactic civilization as partners, not subjects. Kethvar noticed that the human captain never raised her voice or showed anger. She spoke as if she were discussing the weather, not challenging the most powerful being in the galaxy. You speak of things you do not understand, Valdris said. We have ruled for 3,000 years because our way works. Lesser species need guidance and direction. Left to themselves, they would destroy each other. Some might, Chen agreed, but others might surprise you. How many brilliant minds have been wasted in your slave pens? How many potential allies have become enemies because they were conquered instead of welcomed? The Emperor was quiet for a moment, considering her words. Then his expression hardened again. Even if your philosophy has merit, what gives you the right to question us? You represent one world against an empire of millions. Your ship, whatever its technology, is still just one vessel against our entire fleet. Captain Chen smiled slightly. Your Majesty, we hoped this conversation would help us understand each other better. We do not wish to be enemies. But we also cannot stand by while suffering continues across the galaxy. Are you threatening the Empire? Valdris asked, his voice dangerously quiet. We are offering an alternative, Chen replied. Work with us to create a new kind of galactic government. One based on cooperation instead of conquest. Transform the Empire into a federation where all species are equal partners. The Emperor's laugh filled the bridge. Equal partners? With primitive species that were eating dirt when we already ruled half the galaxy? You are either very brave or very foolish, Captain. Perhaps both, Chen admitted. But we believe that all intelligent life has value and potential. Judge us not by where we started, but by where we have arrived. And where exactly have you arrived? Valdris leaned forward, genuinely curious now. What makes you think one ship can change 3,000 years of Imperial tradition? Captain Chen was quiet for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Your Majesty, would you be willing to see a demonstration of our capabilities? We believe it might help explain our position. Admiral Kethvar felt his blood go cold. Was this human actually challenging the Emperor to combat? You wish to test your single ship against the Imperial fleet? Valdris asked, sounding amused. Not a test of weapons, Chen said quickly. Simply a demonstration of our technology. No one will be harmed, and it will take only a few minutes. The Emperor considered this. What kind of demonstration? Allow us to show you how we move between stars, how we arrived here without being detected. We think it will help you understand why we believe cooperation is more valuable than conquest. Valdris looked at Admiral Kethvar, who shrugged uncertainly. What could one ship do against 10,000? Very well, the Emperor said finally. Show us what you can do, but any aggressive action will result in your immediate destruction. Understood, Captain Chen replied. Thank you for your patience, Your Majesty. We hope this will be the beginning of a new friendship between our peoples. She nodded to someone off-screen and the transmission ended. Admiral Kethvar immediately ordered all ships to high alert. All vessels prepare for unknown enemy action. Weapons locked and ready. The Prometheus continued to float peacefully among the Imperial ships. It showed no signs of powering weapons or raising shields. For several minutes nothing happened. Then the impossible began. Admiral, the sensor officer called out in panic. Something's happening to the Destroyer Squadron 7. On the main screen, they watched 3 Imperial destroyers simply fade away, becoming transparent before disappearing completely. One moment they were there, the next moment there was only empty space. Where did they go? Kethvar demanded. Sir, according to sensors, they're 50 light-years away. In the coordinate system. Impossible. Nothing can move that far instantly. Before anyone could respond, the 3 destroyers reappeared exactly where they had been, completely undamaged. A communication came from their lead captain. Admiral, we were transported somehow. One moment we were here. The next we were in deep space near Cordon. Then we were back here. Our ships show no damage and our crews are unharmed. Emperor Valdris stared at the screen in shock. How? He whispered. Captain Chen's image appeared again on the communication screen. Your Majesty, she said gently. This is how we travel. We do not fight space and time. We work with them. What you just saw was a simple relocation. We could have sent those ships anywhere in the galaxy and brought them back safely. The Emperor was speechless. In all his long life, he had never seen technology that could move ships instantly across such distances. This is impossible, he finally managed to say. Not impossible, Chen replied. Simply different. And this is only the beginning of what we can do. We hope this helps you understand why we believe the old ways of conquest and war are no longer necessary. Admiral Kethvar looked around his bridge. Every officer stared at the screens in complete amazement. If the humans could move Imperial ships at will, what else could they do? For the first time in 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire faced something it had never encountered before, a power greater than its own. Emperor Valdris sat in stunned silence for several long minutes after watching his destroyers disappear and reappear. The demonstration had shaken him to his core, but 3,000 years of absolute rule had taught him never to show weakness. He was the Emperor of the galaxy and no primitive species would make him bow. Captain Chen, he said finally, his voice carefully controlled, your technology is impressive, but tricks and illusions do not change the reality of power. You have 1 ship. We have 10,000. Even if you can move our vessels around, you cannot win against such numbers. Captain Chen's expression remained patient and understanding. Your Majesty, we do not wish to win or lose. We wish to create a better future for all species in the galaxy. Pretty words, and Valdris replied coldly. But the galaxy respects only strength. You speak of cooperation, but how do you plan to enforce your vision? How will you make the Empire change 3,000 years of successful rule? We hope you will choose to change because it is the right thing to do, Chen answered simply. The Emperor's scales turned deep red with anger. Choose? The Empire does not bow to the demands of inferior species. We have conquered worlds that refuse to accept our rule. What makes you think we will surrender to you? We do not ask you to surrender, Captain Chen said calmly. We ask you to evolve. Enough. Valdris stood up from his throne, his 6 arms spreading wide in a gesture of absolute authority. You have shown us your magic tricks, but now you will face reality. Admiral Kethvar. Yes, Your Majesty. All ships are to open fire on the human vessel immediately. Show these primitives what happens when they threaten the Empire. Admiral Kethvar hesitated for only a moment. Your Majesty, should we not try to capture their technology first? No, destroy them now. Their arrogance ends here. The Admiral turned to his weapons officer. All ships open fire? Target the enemy vessel with everything we have. The space around Dominion Prime erupted in light as 10,000 Imperial warships fired at once. Plasma cannons that could melt continents sent streams of superheated energy toward the Prometheus. Antimatter torpedoes that could crack moons launched from every direction. Particle beams that could slice through the strongest armor focused on the human ship. It was the greatest display of firepower in galactic history. Enough energy to destroy 100 worlds converged on the single human vessel, and then something impossible happened. The weapons simply stopped existing. Every plasma bolt, every torpedo, every particle beam vanished the moment it came within 1,000 kilometers of the Prometheus. Not destroyed, not deflected, not absorbed, they simply ceased to be, as if they had never been fired at all. The human ship sat completely unharmed in the middle of the barrage, its hull not even slightly damaged. It didn't glow with heat, didn't spark from impacts, didn't show any signs that it had been attacked at all. Report, Admiral Kethvar shouted over the confused voices of his crew. Sir, all weapons fire has been neutralized, the weapons officer replied. his voice shaking. No impacts on target. It's as if our shots never existed. Impossible. Fire again. The second barrage had the same result. Thousands of the most powerful weapons in the galaxy fired at once, and every shot simply vanished before reaching the target. Emperor Valdris stared at the screen in disbelief. What kind of shields could do that? Sir, the science officer called out, I'm not detecting any shield energy at all. The weapons aren't being stopped, they're being erased. Captain Chen's image appeared on the communication screen again. She looked completely calm, as if being attacked by 10,000 warships was no more troubling than rain on a window. Your Majesty, she said gently, we understand your frustration. Change is never easy, especially for those who have held power for so long. But we hope this demonstration shows you that the old ways of solving problems through violence are no longer necessary. How? Valdris whispered. How are you doing this? We have learned to work with the fundamental forces of reality itself, Chen explained. Matter, energy, space, and time are not our enemies to be fought against. They are tools to be used wisely. The Emperor found his voice again. You're saying you can control reality? In limited ways, yes. Within the space around our ship, we can adjust certain physical laws. Your weapons cease to exist because we convinced the universe that they never should have existed in the first place. Admiral Kethavar felt his legs go weak. You can rewrite physics? To some extent, Captain Chen replied. It took our species many centuries to learn this skill. But once we did, we realized that war and conquest became meaningless. Why fight over resources when you can create them? Why conquer worlds when you can make new ones? Emperor Valdris slowly sat back down on his throne. For the first time in his long life, he faced an enemy he could not defeat, could not understand, and could not intimidate. What do you want from us? He asked quietly. We want you to stop the suffering, Chen replied. Free the slave species. End the forced conquests. Transform the Empire into something that benefits everyone, not just the Zephyrians. And if we refuse? Captain Chen was quiet for a moment, as if the question saddened her. Then we will be forced to take more direct action. But we would much prefer to work with you than against you. What kind of direct action? Instead of answering with words, Captain Chen nodded to someone off-screen. Suddenly, 3 more Imperial destroyers vanished from the formation. Sir, the sensor officer called out. Ships displaced again. This time they're in orbit around Kepler 7. That's on the other side of the galaxy, Kethavar exclaimed. Yes, Captain Chen confirmed. And they will remain there until we bring them back. Completely safe but unable to return on their own. They have enough supplies for several months. The destroyers reappeared a moment later, but the message was clear. The humans could remove any Imperial ship from anywhere at any time. Your weapons cannot harm us, Chen continued. Your ships can be relocated anywhere we choose. Your technology, advanced as it is, cannot compete with our mastery of reality itself. But we do not wish to be your enemies. We want to be your teachers. Teachers. The Emperor's pride flared again. The Empire needs no teachers. Your Majesty, 3,000 years ago, your people learned to travel between stars. That was a great achievement. But we have learned to travel between dimensions to reshape matter at the atomic level, to bend space and time to our will. We have moved beyond the need for war and conquest because we have found better ways to achieve our goals. And you think you can teach us these abilities? Some of them, yes. But more importantly, we can teach you why you no longer need them. When you can create anything you need, conquest becomes pointless. When you can travel anywhere instantly, borders become meaningless. When you can solve problems by changing reality itself, war becomes obsolete. Emperor Valdris looked around his bridge, seeing the fear and confusion in his officers' eyes. They had built their entire civilization on being the strongest, the most advanced, the most powerful. Now they faced beings who made their greatest achievements look like children's toys. How many ships do you have? He asked finally. Captain Chen smiled sadly. Enough! That's not an answer. Your Majesty, the exact number doesn't matter. What matters is that every human ship can do what you have seen the Prometheus do. We can be anywhere, anytime without warning. We can neutralize any weapon, relocate any fleet, reshape any battlefield. But we would much rather use these abilities to help you build a better civilization than to tear down the one you have. The Emperor was quiet for a long time, thinking harder than he had in centuries. Finally, he looked back at the screen. What exactly are you proposing? A new kind of empire, Chen replied. One built on cooperation instead of conquest. One where every species contributes their unique abilities and knowledge to the whole. One where the strong protect the weak instead of enslaving them. And if we agree to this change, you will teach us your technology? We will share what we can when you are ready. But the technology is not the important part. The important part is learning to use it wisely. Emperor Valdris closed his eyes and considered his options. He could continue to fight, but it was clear that the humans could destroy his empire whenever they chose. He could surrender completely, but that would mean the end of everything he had built. Or he could try something the empire had never done before. Change. When he opened his eyes again, Captain Chen was waiting patiently for his answer. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Emperor Valdris stared at Captain Chen for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. The silence on every bridge in the Imperial fleet was complete. 10,000 ships waited to see what their emperor would decide. "You ask me to abandon everything that has made the empire great," Valdris said finally. 3,000 years of expansion, conquest, and growth. You want me to simply give it all up based on the words of a species we had never even heard of until today? Not give up, Captain Chen replied gently. Transform. Take all the strength and knowledge your people have gathered and use it to build something even greater. And if I refuse, if I choose to fight rather than surrender? Captain Chen's expression grew sad. Then you force us to show you the full truth about what humanity has become. We had hoped it would not be necessary. What truth? Instead of answering immediately, Captain Chen turned to speak with someone off-screen. After a moment, she looked back at the Emperor. Your Majesty, what I'm about to tell you may be difficult to accept. We have not been completely honest about our capabilities. Admiral Kethvar felt a chill run through his body. If what they had already seen was not the humans' full power, what else could they do? The Prometheus is not just a warship, Chen continued. It is what we call a reality anchor. Within a certain distance of our ship, we can change the fundamental laws of physics. That is how we neutralized your weapons and relocated your ships. We understand that much, Valdris replied impatiently. What are you not telling us? The Prometheus is not alone. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Emperor Valdris felt his ancient heart skip a beat. How many ships do you have? He whispered. Captain Chen paused before answering. Throughout this galaxy, we currently have active reality anchors on over 50,000 vessels. The number hit the Emperor like a physical blow. 50,000 ships, each one capable of doing what the Prometheus had just demonstrated. The entire Imperial fleet could be relocated to the far side of the galaxy in minutes. That's impossible, Admiral Kethvar said weakly. We would have detected such a fleet. Not if we didn't want you to, Chen replied. Our ships exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Most of the time, they are not in this reality at all. They only enter normal space when needed. You've been watching us, Valdris realized. For how long? For centuries. We have been observing the development of galactic civilization, waiting to see if other species would learn to move beyond war and conquest on their own. And we failed your test. Captain Chen shook her head. Not failed. You simply took a different path. But it is not too late to choose a better direction. What about other species in the galaxy? Do they know about humanity? Some do. We have made contact with 17 different civilizations over the past 200 years. Most were much smaller than your empire, and they chose to work with us rather than against us. You mean they surrendered? No, Your Majesty. They joined us willingly once they understood what we offered. The Altarian Republic, for example, was facing extinction from a plague that was killing their entire species. We helped them cure the disease and rebuild their population. In return, they shared their knowledge of bioengineering with us, and the Cordon Union was being invaded by a species from outside the galaxy. We helped them defend their worlds, and they taught us new methods of energy manipulation. Emperor Valdris listened with growing understanding. You're not conquerors. You're collectors. We prefer to think of ourselves as gardeners, Chen replied. We help civilizations grow and flourish, and in return we all become stronger together. But what makes you think the Empire would be interested in such an arrangement? We are already the strongest civilization in the galaxy. Captain Chen smiled slightly. Are you? Your technology is impressive, but it is based on principles that are thousands of years old. Your society is stable, but it depends on the suffering of billions of enslaved beings. Your military is powerful, but it could be defeated by a single human ship. The words stung because they were true. Valdris had spent his entire life believing in the Empire's superiority, but in one day that belief had been shattered. "What would happen to the Empire if we agreed to your proposal?" he asked. "The Empire would become the foundation of something much greater," Chen replied. "Instead of ruling over other species, you would lead them as equals. Instead of taking from conquered worlds, you would trade knowledge and resources freely. Instead of expanding through war, you would grow through cooperation. And my people? What would happen to the Zephyrians? Your species would become part of a galactic community that includes hundreds of different civilizations. You would learn technologies and ideas that would advance your society by thousands of years. Your artists would create beauty beyond anything you can imagine. Your scientists would unlock secrets of the universe that your current science cannot even dream of. It sounds too good to be true. It is true, Your Majesty. We have helped 17 other civilizations make this transition. All of them are happier, healthier, and more advanced than they were under their old systems." Admiral Kethvar cleared his throat. "Captain, if I may ask a question?" "Of course, Admiral. Why reveal yourselves now? If you have been watching us for centuries, why make contact today?" Captain Chen's expression grew serious. "Because the Empire has reached a critical point. Your expansion has begun to threaten species that are under our protection. Your slave raids have started targeting worlds that we consider friends. We could no longer stand by and watch?" "You mean you would have eventually stopped us anyway?" "If necessary, yes. But we hope that by revealing ourselves now, we could avoid a conflict that would hurt billions of innocent beings." Emperor Valdris understood. "You're giving us a choice. Change willingly or be forced to change. We prefer to think of it as offering help before it becomes necessary to intervene," Chen replied diplomatically. The Emperor stood up and walked to the window of his bridge, looking out at his massive fleet. 10,000 of the most powerful warships ever built, and they were helpless against a single human vessel. How had his proud civilization become so weak so quickly? "If we agree to work with you," he said without turning around, "what would happen to me personally? Would I remain Emperor?" "That would be up to your people to decide," Captain Chen answered. "We believe in democracy and self-determination. If the Zephyrians choose to keep you as their leader, we would support that decision. If they choose someone else, we would support that as well. You would not simply install your own puppet ruler." "No, Your Majesty. We have learned that forced governments never work in the long term. Real change must come from within." Valdris turned back to face the screen. "And if I refuse? If I choose to fight rather than surrender the Empire's independence?" Captain Chen was quiet for a long moment before answering. "Then we would be forced to take more direct action. We would begin by freeing the slave species on your border worlds. We would protect any planet that chose to leave the Empire. We would prevent your ships from conducting raids or forced conquests. You would destroy the Empire piece by piece. We would allow the Empire to destroy itself by holding on to ideas that no longer work in the modern galaxy. But we would protect the innocent while it happened." The Emperor realized that he was facing an impossible choice. He could agree to change everything about the Empire's nature, or he could watch it slowly crumble as humanity freed every oppressed world and protected every threatened species. "How long do I have to decide?" he asked. "Take all the time you need," Captain Chen replied. "But while you decide, we will be taking action to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The slave raids end today. The forced conquest end today. The oppression ends today. And if some of my commanders refuse to obey those limits, then they will discover that their ships no longer respond to their commands." Emperor Valdris sat back down on his throne, feeling older than he had ever felt before. 3,000 years of tradition and power, and it could all end with a single decision. "I need to speak with my advisors," he said, finally. "Of course," Captain Chen replied. "We will wait for your answer. But remember, Your Majesty, we are offering you a chance to be part of something wonderful. The choice is yours." The transmission ended, leaving the Emperor alone with the most important decision in galactic history. The next few hours changed the galaxy forever. Emperor Valdris called an emergency meeting of his top commanders and advisors. Representatives from across the Empire gathered in holographic form on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. The discussion that followed was unlike anything in Imperial history. "The humans are clearly superior to us technologically," admitted Admiral Zaris, commander of the Outer Rim fleets. "Their single ship made our entire armada look helpless. But we cannot simply surrender 3,000 years of imperial tradition, argued General Korvac, head of the Imperial Army. Our ancestors built this empire through strength and courage. We cannot abandon their legacy. What legacy? Asked Admiral Kethvar quietly. A legacy of enslaving other species? Of conquering worlds that wanted only to be left in peace? Perhaps it is time to build a better legacy. The debate continued for hours. Some commanders supported immediate acceptance of the human offer. Others demanded that the Empire fight to the death rather than change. Still others suggested trying to steal or copy human technology to level the playing field. During the meeting, reports began coming in from across the Empire. Human ships had appeared at dozens of border worlds where slave raids were in progress. In every case, the Imperial ships found their weapons offline and their engines disabled. The raids simply stopped, and the potential slaves were left free. On 3 worlds where Imperial forces were in the middle of forced conquests, something even more dramatic happened. The human ships didn't just stop the fighting. They transported all the Imperial troops safely back to their home bases, leaving the contested worlds completely free. They're dismantling our operations without firing a shot, reported Admiral Thex from the Southern Spiral. My ships aren't damaged, but they won't respond to weapons commands. It's like the humans have taken control of our systems remotely. Emperor Valdris listened to report after report of the same thing. Wherever the Empire was engaged in activities the humans disapproved of, those activities simply stopped. No violence, no destruction, no loss of life, just complete neutralization of Imperial power. Your Majesty, Admiral Kethvar said during a pause in the reports, I think we need to face reality. The humans can end the Empire whenever they choose. They're being gentle with us now, but that could change. You suggest we surrender? General Korvac demanded. I suggest we adapt, Kethvar replied. The galaxy has changed. We can change with it or be left behind. Before anyone could respond, Captain Chen's image appeared on the main screen again. Your Majesty, she said politely, I apologize for interrupting your discussions, but we thought you should know that we have received communications from several worlds within your empire. What kind of communications? Valdris asked warily. Requests for independence. Over 200 worlds have asked for our protection, while they establish their own governments. The Emperor felt his heart sink. And you agreed? We told them that we would respect whatever decision your empire makes about its future. But we also told them that we would not allow them to be punished for expressing their desires for freedom. Admiral Kethvar understood immediately. You're saying that if we try to retake those worlds by force, you'll stop us. We're saying that the age of ruling through fear and violence is over, Captain Chen replied. From now on, governments must earn the loyalty of their people. General Korvac stepped forward angrily. You're destroying our empire. No, General. We're giving your empire a chance to become something better. The choice of what to do with that chance is still yours. Emperor Valdris raised a hand for silence.
Captain Chen, what happens if I agree to your proposal?
What exactly would the transition look like? We would work with you to create a new form of government, Chen replied. Instead of an empire based on conquest, you would lead a federation based on cooperation. Every world would have a voice in decisions that affect them. Every species would contribute their unique abilities to the common good. And the Zephyrians? What would our role be in this federation? Your people have great skills in organization and administration. You could become the coordinators and facilitators that help hundreds of different species work together effectively. But we would no longer be the rulers. You would be leaders, but not masters. There's a difference. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had been bothering him since the conversation began. Captain Chen, what if some of my commanders refuse to accept this change? What if they try to continue the old ways despite my orders? Captain Chen's expression grew sad. Then they will discover that their ships and weapons will no longer function for aggressive purposes. We cannot allow the suffering to continue, Your Majesty. Change is coming whether the Empire leads it or not. As if to prove her point, alarms suddenly began sounding throughout the Imperial fleet. Admiral Kethvar quickly checked his status reports. Your Majesty, he said urgently, I'm getting reports from Admiral Dracos in the eastern sectors. He's attempting to retake the Kepler system by force. And his fleet's weapons are offline. All of them. His ships can move, but they cannot fire a shot. On the screen, Captain Chen nodded sadly. Admiral Dracos was warned, but he chose to ignore our request for restraint. His ships are unharmed, but they will remain defenseless until he agrees to end his attack on civilian populations. Emperor Valdris realized that the demonstration was for his benefit. The humans were showing him that resistance was not just futile, it was impossible. "How many human ships are in this galaxy?" he asked quietly. "Enough to monitor every world and protect every innocent life," Chen replied. "Your Majesty, we don't want to be your enemies. We want to be your friends and partners, but we will not allow the strong to prey upon the weak." The Emperor looked around at his advisors and commanders. He could see the fear and uncertainty in their eyes. They had built their entire lives on the belief that power came from strength and weapons. Now they faced beings who had moved beyond such simple concepts. "If I agree to this transformation," Valdris said slowly, "will you help us? Will you teach us how to build this new kind of civilization?" "We will do everything we can to help," Captain Chen promised. "And you won't be alone. The other 17 civilizations that have made this transition will also share their experiences and knowledge." "And if I refuse?" Captain Chen was quiet for a moment. "Then you will watch the Empire crumble as every oppressed world seeks our protection, and every enslaved species asks for our help. We will not force you to change, but we will prevent you from harming others." Emperor Valdris closed his eyes and made the most difficult decision of his long life. "I agree," he said quietly. "The Empire will transform itself into a federation, but I want your promise that my people will be treated fairly during this transition." "You have it," Captain Chen replied immediately. "And, Your Majesty, I think you'll find that your people will be happier and more prosperous than they have ever been." "When do we begin?" "Right now. We have representatives ready to help with the transition process. And Your Majesty?" "Yes? Thank you for making the wise choice. History will remember this as the day the galaxy truly began to grow up." The transmission ended, and Emperor Valdris sat back in his throne. 3,000 years of imperial rule were over, but perhaps something even greater was about to begin. Admiral Kethvar approached the throne. "Your Majesty, what are your orders?" Valdris managed a small smile. "Send a message to all imperial forces. The age of conquest is over. The age of cooperation has begun." As the news spread throughout the galaxy, celebrations began on 1,000 worlds. The Zephyrian Empire was dead, but from its ashes, something wonderful was being born, and in the depths of space, 50,000 human ships stood ready to protect the peace and help guide the galaxy toward a brighter future than anyone had ever dared to imagine. The humans had kept their promise. They had come not as conquerors, but as teachers, and the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Sarah Chen smiled as she watched the first Federation Council meeting begin. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss their shared future. It had taken humanity centuries to reach this level of wisdom and cooperation. Now they would help the rest of the galaxy learn the same lessons. The age of humanity's greatness was not in their technology or their power. It was in their ability to bring out the best in others and create something greater than any one species could achieve alone. And that was the most human thing of all.